Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Here are the stories we're following today.
Amy, stocks begin this day at all-time highs following yesterday's double dose of economic news. Inflation came in softer than expected, and the Federal Reserve did little to offset Wall Street's bets that interest rates will drop at least twice in 2024. Gina Martin-Adams is chief U.S. equity analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence.
I think that equities are experiencing a bit of inflation relief. So as long as CPI is continuing to decelerate, equities feel a lot better that at the very least the Fed is on hold. And frankly, the Fed on hold is the best possible outcome for stocks at this moment. We were contending with the notion that maybe the Fed would even have to tighten again.
Bloomberg Intelligence's Gina Martin-Adams notes the S&P 500 topped 5,400 for the first time in its history. Yesterday marked the 20-month anniversary of this bull market.
And Nathan, as for the Fed, officials dialed back their expectations for interest rate cuts this year, although they did keep the door open for more. Jay Powell and company also raising their forecasts for inflation, even after better data on consumer prices published earlier in the day provided cause for optimism.
We don't make decisions about future meetings until we get there. I think in terms of what we need to see, we want to gain further confidence. Certainly, more good inflation readings will help with that. I'm not going to be specific about how many because, really it's going to be not just the inflation readings, it's going to be the totality of the data.
Jay Powell and the Fed yesterday left the benchmark federal funds rate in a range of 5.25% to 5.5%.
And reaction is still pouring in to that decision along with the inflation data. Amy, Jeffrey Rosenberg is a senior portfolio manager at BlackRock.
What is clear here is that having been a little bit burned by the enthusiasm at the end of last year and then the reversal on inflation, they're not going to want to reverse so quickly with just one good print. And he stated again and again they'll need more than just one.
BlackRock's Jeffrey Rosenberg says investors risk losing out on income by staying in cash. He says treasuries maturing in 2 to 5 years are a more attractive investment.
And it looks like the tech rally is set to continue today. NASDAQ futures are up 0.75%, helping fuel gains. Broadcom, those shares are up 14%. The chip supplier reported quarterly results and an annual forecast topping estimates, lifted by robust demand for artificial intelligence products. We get more on that from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
Broadcom is a chip supplier to Apple and other big tech companies. It said sales in the full fiscal year, which runs through October, will be about $51 billion. Analysts had projected about $50.6 billion. The race to build artificial intelligence systems has benefited semiconductor companies like Broadcom, even though they don't sell the highly prized AI chips that are made by NVIDIA. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Charlie, thanks. On top of that, Broadcom also announced a 10-for-1 stock split. And sticking with tech, Bloomberg News has learned OpenAI is on pace for $3.4 billion of annual revenue. Sources say CEO Sam Altman told company staff the vast majority of that is coming from OpenAI's products and services.
And shares of Tesla up almost 7% now to key proposals to re-ratify Elon Musk's pay package and to make Texas the legal home for Tesla appear to be on the way to passing, according to a preliminary shareholder vote. This all started in January when a judge in Delaware struck down Musk's $56 billion pay package after a shareholder challenged it as excessive. That's when Musk said he would move the company's legal home to Texas, but both proposals require investor support. Tesla's shareholder meeting is today at the company's headquarters in Austin.
Turning back to Washington, Amy, it's going to be a day to watch on Capitol Hill. Former President Donald Trump is coming back to the nation's capital for the first time since his felony convictions in New York last month. Trump will be meeting with GOP lawmakers for a show of their support. We get more from Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson in Washington.
He is meeting with the House Republicans and Senate Republicans to set the policy for the rest of this year, and then if they win after that. I think even if he loses, and Biden is president, Republicans in Congress will still be pushed and pulled by Donald Trump in terms of the policy that they're going to talk about right before he goes and meets with the most powerful CEOs in the country.
Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson says CEOs expected to meet with the former president today include J.P. Morgan Chase's Jamie Dimon, Jane Fraser of Citigroup, Bank of America's Brian Moynihan, and Apple CEO Tim Cook. They'll be appearing at an event hosted by the Business Roundtable.
And crucial talks are getting underway this morning in Bari, Italy. That is where leaders of the Group of Seven Nations are gathering to discuss a range of issues, from confronting China to supporting Ukraine. And there's already progress on one score. Bloomberg News has learned the G7 has agreed on a loan structure for Ukraine using the profits from frozen Russian assets. More on this with Bloomberg's Oliver Crook at the summit in Bari.
We've been talking about sums at about $50 billion. And what it's looking like now, the agreement that's coalescing, is will be done in the sort of form of a loan that's going to be backed by a number of the G7 nations, mostly by the United States, but topped up by others. And that gets sort of pushed out to Ukraine. And then that loan gets eventually repaid over time with the profits from those frozen assets that sit mostly here in Europe.
But Bloomberg's Oliver Crook reports the final technical details on the loan structure will be ironed out after this weekend's summit.
Back to markets now, Amy, and a focus on short selling. Amid the resurgence of the meme stock craze, legendary short seller Jim Chanos says a relentless bull market leaves many companies with bloated valuations, and that's made it harder to raise capital for short sellers. Still, he tells Bloomberg short selling could help investors in the current environment.
I've called this the golden age of fraud. So there's just so many companies, so many companies now that are playing games that are trying to take advantage of investors. So we need short sellers more than ever.
Jim Chanos tells us even though there are opportunities to expose corporate fraud, he does not see short selling attracting big pools of capital anytime soon.
And frankly, we hope you don't have a beef with this final story. Netflix says it will air a live hot dog eating competition on Labor Day. I know. Okay. Main combatants will be Joey Chestnut and rival Takeru Kobayashi. Now, the announcement comes just a day after Chestnut was banned from the annual 4th of July Nathan's Famous hot dog eating contest in Coney Island. He signed a marketing deal with Impossible Foods. That's a plant-based food company that sells meatless hot dogs. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Amy. A man in New York City is under arrest after police pulled him over for a traffic stop and found a cache of weapons in his vehicle. NYPD Chief Jeffrey Madre.
Members of this department make gun arrests, weapons arrests for knives every day. But arrests of this magnitude, the amount of ammunition, NYPD paraphernalia in the car was significant.
Chief Madre says during their search, police found a handgun, 9 loaded magazines, body armor, handcuffs, NYPD uniform items, 2 axes, a stun gun, multiple knives, a weighted whip, and an expandable baton. A tropical disturbance has brought a rare flash flood emergency to much of southern Florida. The downpours and subsequent flooding blocked roads and floated vehicles. Dania Beach received about a foot of rain, according to Mayor A.J. Ryan.
I've definitely seen residents in kayaks and rafts trying to help other residents and, getting outside and assisting others. So that's really a great thing to see.
Floridians are preparing to weather more heavy rainfall today and tomorrow. House Republicans voted to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. It was for refusing to turn over audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel during the classified documents investigation. The transcripts of that interview have already been made public, and the special counsel declined to prosecute. Republican James Comer of Kentucky explained why he was seeking the contempt charge against Garland.
The House of Representatives cannot serve as a necessary check on the presidency if the executive branch is free to ignore the House's subpoenas.
However, Democrat Jamie Raskin said the effort was the latest in a series of unfounded Republican attacks on the Biden administration.
Holding the Attorney General of the United States in contempt is one more useful distraction from the complete and devastating implosion of the Biden impeachment probe, which of course was the #1 priority of these talented leaders.
The vote was mostly along party lines. The Southern Baptist Convention voted to oppose the use of in vitro fertilization. Southern Baptists, the country's largest Protestant denomination, has almost 13 million church members across the U.S. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Time now for our Bloomberg Sports Update. For that, we bring in John Stashower.
All right, good morning, Amy. Unless the Dallas Mavericks do something never before done in the NBA playoffs, the Boston Celtics are going to be NBA champs for the 18th time. No teams come back from a 3-0 deficit, and the Celtics lead the finals 3-0 in Dallas. They won the third quarter 35-19, and they won Game 3 106-99, and they can finish a final sweep tomorrow. And the Celtics are now 7-0 on the road in the playoffs. They were led by their stars. Jason Tatum scored 31 points. Jaylen Brown scored 30. He was happier about what he did at the other end of the court.
To be in these moments and show your defensive versatility, I mean, picking guys up, guarding guys in the post, switching on, blocking contested threes. It's been big for us, but we got a lot of great defenders on this team. So it's been a full team effort.
Before tip-off, a moment of silence for an NBA legend. Jerry West passed away at 86. You can make the argument no one in sports history combined excellence as both a player and then as a front office executive. West played 14 years with the Lakers. He was an all-star in all of them. Tormented by playoff disappointments, he lost 8 times in the finals, but he still ended up part of 9 championship teams. Yankees finished the sweep in Kansas City. This one over very early, a 6-run first inning. Yanks went on to win 11-5, 3-run homers for Jose Trevino and Gleyber Torres. And the Yanks have won 12 of their last 14. While they were scoring 11 runs, the Mets put up 10, a 10-4 Citi Field rout of Miami. Mets had 14 hits, hit 3 homers. U.S. Open tees off this morning at Pinehurst number 2 in North Carolina. There have been 3 previous Opens at this course, and only 4 have ever finished with a score under par. 60,000 Patriots fans at Gillette Stadium for the Tom Brady ceremony. A lot different than that roast they recently had for him. Over 100 of his former teammates on hand. So was Bill Belichick for the 3-hour-long tribute. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Amy and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. Where to bet on rates now? Well, the Federal Reserve is dialing back its own expectations on cuts this year, but Chairman Jerome Powell may be leaving the door open for more after the latest reading on inflation came in cooler than expected. A 1-2 economic punch that investors are still sorting out. So let's get some clarity, if we can now, from Jennifer Lee, senior economist at BMO Capital Markets. Jen, always great to speak with you. So the median dot's up a bit, but there's a lot of wiggle room in there. What's the signal you're seeing from this Federal Reserve now?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me on. It was a very mixed signal, but clearly I think all the Fed officials are being very cautious, and again, I'm going to point to all those keywords that have been used by every central bank around the world, and certainly by the Fed Chair Powell yesterday about the totality, looking at the totality of the data, how everything is going to be dependent on the data, and how every decision is going to be made on a meeting-by-meeting basis. I thought it was quite interesting, by the way, when he was talking about how this decision actually reflected that that very encouraging May CPI figure that was released earlier in the morning, but only I think a couple of them or a few of them made some tweaks to their dots. I think everyone wants to be very cautious before they get too excited about rate cuts.
So you don't think that the door is open then for a rate cut in July? I mean, we do get a fair amount of data between now and then.
Yeah, I think no, I don't think it's. I think that would be far too soon. Like so far for BMO, we have September and December, and so far we're pretty comfortable with that. I mean, certainly, we saw yesterday in markets. There's so much joy in Whoville after that very encouraging report. But there's that was only 2 in a row. Arguably, the first one last month was encouraging as well, but I had a very low bar to beat. So, that's only really 1.5, we'll say, decent CPI reports. So you're going to need a lot more than that. So I think by the time September rolls around, and plus, I should also mention that we're going to have the Jackson Hole meeting as well in August to chew over as well. So I think that will hold a little more importance at that point in time, which I guess time's going to fly by. It's only in a couple of months. Yeah. So I think July is far, far too early, but I think September is still quite doable.
We also saw the Fed raise its projections for where inflation's going to come down in the next few years. Do those projections match with what you're seeing over BMO?
Yes, I think he sort of downplayed it. I think he was saying that they're being very conservative. I think they would rather. It would be very strange if their dots came in, as they did with only one, the median seeing only one rate cut this year, and yet having inflation forecast coming lower. So I think, I think it would be a very mixed message at that point. So not too shocked to see higher inflation factoring in. And then, of course, only one rate cut this year instead of three.
What's the risk in kicking off the rate cycle sooner than the Fed is signaling now? Why not go ahead with rate cuts sooner than the Fed's been saying?
I think there is a risk because right now the economy, although it's only been very recent that we started seeing some slower economic figures over the last, say, couple of weeks. So I think it's too soon, and it's going to appear like they're jumping the gun. And the last thing they want to do is put in a rate cut, say, in July, for example, have the economy turn around and reaccelerate and have inflation accelerate again. And then the Fed's going to have a bigger issue on their hands, which is credibility. So I think they're going to be very patient, take this meeting by meeting, watch every piece of data that's coming out, and we'll see what happens in the fall.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.